And hold on. There we go. Oh, we're live. I hadn't full screen Discords. Production. Hello, everybody. Uh,
Hello, everyone.
Welcome to another episode of Discussions and Dragons, our bi-weekly show about being a dungeon master or game master, whatever your preference is. We bi-weekly with a little asterisk
Yeah,
on there. I'm Steven.
roughly,
Yeah,
roughly
exactly.
bi-weekly.
I'm Steve. I'm here with my friend Eric. Hello, Eric.
Hello, Steve.
We've got our new prime time slot. This is Discussions and Dragons After Dark.
After dark.
Normally we do this at like 9 in the morning, but like now we're doing it at like 8 at night, almost.
I still have my coffee cup, but it's filled with water because I need to stay hydrated.
That's good. Giant cup of go fuck yourself. That's good.
Yes. My mug today is a giant cup of go fuck yourself. I have strong opinions about people who don't like inclusion in games.
Yeah, that's which is gonna be today's topic. We're gonna get there in a sec. I'm keeping us grounded with the Santa mug.
Keep in mind,
We got
someone's
the
on the nice list, someone's on the naughty list. We
yeah,
always
got
have
that bear representation is important as a bear myself.
as a bear, as a bear.
Yeah, I gotta rep my homies or something. Is that how we?
The most. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
I think the most notable bear of all time would be Santa.
yeah. Probably. Yeah.
Definitely.
He's the most famous, maybe real bear of all
Definitely.
time.
The most famous bear of all time.
He hangs out
So,
with bears all the time. My camera doesn't want to focus.
oh,
Oh,
come on, camera.
come on.
You need to get that camera some Ritalin.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm not used to cameras that like have the ability to focus. Like
Oh yeah.
I'm used to like shitty web cameras, but this one's like
Like
a
my
not.
yeah, like my mine's like I'm just gonna look at everything.
You've got one, yeah. It's got one setting. I had the same kind of webcam until it died, and now I'm using this one, which is
Yeah.
better, but it's my friend's. Anyways, uh, it's Pride
It is.
for another couple days.
Woo,
uh,
woo.
and we wanted to do a Pride themed episode. I've got my Pride shirt
I
on.
I have like one shirt that has a rainbow on it, and now my fiance is wearing it. But I
Mm.
was like, okay, well, my gay fiance is wearing my rainbow shirt. Like that's pretty pride
You're
repping. I mean,
I think between the two of us, you're crushing it. um, yeah. So we're gonna talk about inclusion and representation in
yeah,
RPGs, both in a like playing with everyone's sense, and also
yes,
in a like fictional world building sense.
yes, in a world building sense, as
Yeah.
well as a
Mhm.
let the gays play.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so I'll start by saying that as a straight white dude, a thing as a straight white dude who's also a content creator, a thing that I have been keenly aware of in all of my creating of content and running shows and running games and playing games even before I was doing this and all of that was the fact that I am a straight white dude in a sea of straight white dudes, and
Straight white
I
dude.
and that in like just from the like time that I began this whole escapade, all of the people that I played with, a lot of the people that I played with were also straight white dudes because I was just playing with my friends that I knew. I've
Right.
I've, I've since been making a concerted effort to both expand the people that I'm playing with and bring in more people. I think like our Blades game is like really cool, and
Yeah.
like doing all that because I think it's an important thing in the space to be able
Right.
to especially streaming and putting stuff on YouTube and all of that, to have diversity is important. Representation matters, and it's cool.
Yes.
Um, and I'll say I was making notes before the show, and I made one single note, and it's the
You
thing.
were making note before the show.
I was gonna make multiple notes, but I only had time to make one, and that's okay. Um, is like the main thing that I do or try to do more than anything is listen.
Yes.
As a straight white dude in a place of privilege, I feel that the impetus is on me to uh accept that I am where I am and listen to people in the LGBT space or the people of color space, that sort of thing.
Right. Right.
That being said, I'm now gonna shut up and let you talk. What's up? Hello, Eric.
Well, hello, Steve. As I've explained to others before when this topic comes up, I certainly am not like at the bottom rung of the privilege tower because I'm also cisgendered and white and a man.
Right.
So I still have several benefit like handicap cards in my corner when I'm playing the game of life, if you will.
Right.
But that being said, yeah, yes. I totally lost my train of thought halfway through that because I was like explaining things. Um, mm. But yes, so I'm certainly still at quite a place of privilege. And even at that place, it's important to remember that everybody should be included in games. That was the
Right.
worst sentence. I literally lost my train of thought halfway through that and was like, pick it up
We'll
any way you
just
can find
just get through it. Just
it.
get
It
on
was like
through
put together a thought and then just end it.
It's all good.
Uh,
But
uh,
yeah,
whirlwind.
I mean, it's true though. Like people, like everyone should be able to play games. It it doesn't matter who you are, what your preferences are, what your gender is, or what your race is. Like everyone
Exactly.
should be able to be included all the time, which is true, and also is not a thing that always happens, which sucks.
Right, right. Now I
Frankly,
remember where I was
frankly.
going with my
All
train
right,
of thought.
I got you.
Um,
I got you with the layup.
you got you know what? I set it up, and then I didn't set it up well.
And then I got
um,
I returned the pass, and now here you go.
but yeah. So yeah, I'm definitely not at the bottom rung of the privilege ladder. I've definitely got my cards running for me. But that being said, I've even seen the nature of the gaming community early on where I was turned away from tables.
Hmm.
And there wasn't like a particular reason that I could fathom, because 9 times out of 10, the table was white dudes just sitting around in a circle. And it's like I came in with the same amount of knowledge. Like there was
Yeah.
no kind of, and like this is kind of me crying wolf a little bit because I'm like, oh, they must not like me because I was gay. But it's a possibility.
Yeah.
And it actually is a probability from what I found out, but that doesn't matter.
Hey.
What matters is what I did was form my own effing groups, and I was
Damn
like,
right.
yeah.
Hell yeah.
Um, People won't let you play their games. Make your own.
Right.
Um, but it's still like in 2019. Are we still there? Is that where we are as a community and as a people, where we still turn others away based on orientation, color of their skin, creed, anything? Like,
I wish we weren't.
I know, I
but
know.
I think and like I think for the most part it has gotten better.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen like a market I don't know how to words.
A
Uh
concerted effort on
yeah.
the half of the gaming
Mhm.
like industry itself to push inclusion in its
Right.
products.
Yeah, and then it just becomes a question of like, are you doing that because it's important to you as a company, or are you doing it because it's like the cool hip thing to do, and you'll
Right.
get more people buying your products or whatever? Like,
Hey, ultimately, and again, I can't speak for everyone, but like from my point of view, I'm thinking I almost don't care what their reasoning is because they're doing it. Like
right,
they've got the message, they're pushing the message out there. ultimately, of course, the message is going to make them money. They're gearing to make money. They're a company. That's what all companies do.
Mhm.
Um, but it helps normalize it. And that's kind of the goal. The goal is make it so regular that nobody cares anymore, because you shouldn't care.
Right.
It's just part of life. So a lot
Mhm.
of people a lot of people in the gaming community, and out of actually a lot of people in the gaming community too, I see they get a little up in arms when like Oreo puts out a rainbow thing and they're like, oh, they're just doing it for money. And I'm like, here's the deal. I don't care, and I'm eating rainbow Oreos.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
I'm like, they got my money for the month of June. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. I was gonna buy an Oreo anyways, but I'll do this
Right?
instead.
Like, I'll do this one instead.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that, and while that's outside of the gaming community, stuff like that helps normalize it, and that trickles down into all the different communities,
Mhm.
including ours, the gaming tabletop community.
Yeah.
And you're right, there's been a huge advance in inclusion, just from the point of a video game, because all of the games that I've actually sat at and played at a table have included gay characters, because of, or gay characters, people, players of color, people of
Yeah.
color, all of that.
Yeah.
It's been very inclusive because those are the people I try to surround myself with.
Right.
um so we're always trying to pick just people who, one, enjoy the game, enjoy each other, and are just in general good people.
Mhm.
So I've been very fortunate in that. Other than, like, usually it's games when I go to like game stores where you get
Yeah.
sometimes less than welcoming attitudes, but
Yeah.
then other times it's great.
Right. Yeah.
But what I was saying is, from a video game standpoint,
Mhm.
I remember when I was a kid and I would play games, you'd never come across a character that was gay, like, ever. It never happened. Like, when they first started introducing gay characters, or like main characters of color, things like that, it's so revolutionary almost.
Yeah. And yeah, I remember when uh I played like League of Legends, and like Lucian was a character, and he was this like black dude with two guns who was like a carry, and he was really cool. But like there was an outcry when he came out, like that sort of
Right.
stuff, and it's like, why is there an outcry? Like, why does
Look,
this matter? What the fuck?
exactly. And the concern is, not that I'm yelling at anyone, but I will start yelling. The concern is that it becomes political, and this is
Mhm.
something I was talking about last week when we were. It might have been during the pre-recording, so it might not have been through. But this idea that inclusion in games is political, or
Right.
is pushing a political agenda, um, and there's a simple argument against that, in which it isn't political; it's just realism.
It's just, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
people of color exist.
Right. Yeah, we're just, yeah, if you're just trying to like accurately represent the world
Any The
at
world,
large, yeah.
then they're there.
Yeah. If you
they're
if
they're
you're if you're playing in a setting, or if you have a campaign setting where like there's no people of color, that says a lot about you.
Says a lot,
You
right?
know,
It says a
like,
lot about you, and maybe, I mean, I'd love to hear the storyline behind it, but it'd have to be a
yeah.
good one.
But
I'd have
there's
to.
there's an interesting kind of like other side to that, and I'm not saying I condone that in any way,
Right,
but like
right.
this is an example. So this is a young Dungeon Master Steve story. When I was first getting started, and I was doing, world building and building all these NPCs and stuff like that. In like one of the first games that I ran, after a long time, I came to this realization myself that like I hadn't really described anyone of my NPCs as being, you know, like a person of color or anything like that, because it just hadn't crossed my mind.
Right,
Like it hadn't crossed my mind that it would or wouldn't, like, that their like color of their skin or their orientation or whatever mattered. And like
right.
I like I think that the sentiment there is right, that it doesn't matter,
No,
but I think that it matters, and it's important, and it's been a concerted like effort of mine since I've come to that realization, to describe like this person as a person of color, this person as gay, or
Right.
whatever, because like having that representation I think is important, be it in a private game at home or something that we're streaming on Twitch or something that we're putting on YouTube. Like just being able to like normalize like putting that out there into the world at large, you know.
Exactly.
So
And it's not like it's just comes it kind of comes back to the idea that like it they are there.
mhm.
So we're normalizing the norm.
Yeah,
Like it's just like this concept of we have to normalize real life.
right. which which I think brings me to segues um, in our like representation in fictional settings, like
Yes.
in the worlds that we build. Like so, like Blades in the Dark. Our Blades in the Dark game is like queer as fuck. like
Yeah, it
like
is.
and it's awesome. It's great. And a lot of my settings that I've kind of that I use I've never like gone out of my way to make like, oh, here's like a whole like legion of queer people, here they are,
Right.
you know, that sort of thing.
Right.
But there's
Utopia.
right. But ever since the story that I told a little while ago, I've made a concerted effort, and I've had comments about that. So like, someone in a game that I was playing a little while ago, um, I made a reference to something, and I was like, yeah, their wife, like this male character, like yeah, like it might be like, you know, their wife or their husband, I don't know. And the
Right.
and one of the people I was playing with said, well, like, oh, well, like that would get them in a lot of trouble if that was the thing. And I went like, hold on, wait a minute, why do you think that? And he's like, and he said, you know, in this like, you know, in this world, you know, if it's like replicating, you know, the olden times, then they could get in trouble for that. And I was like, I see where you're coming from,
Right.
but in I think and I came to a conclusion at that point about like all of my worlds, regardless of how like quote unquote historically accurate any of my settings are ever going to be. I think all of that stuff would just be normalized,
Right.
like no matter
That's
what, because it's like
that's yeah.
because that's
I'm
how
like in my
this is how it should be.
Go ahead.
No, you're good.
Right. I'm like in my fantasy world settings, I think all of the people living there have such bigger issues to contend with than like the idea that like Lisa and Sally are getting eloped. Like
Right.
there's like liches that exist, dragons flying around extorting taxes on people. Like they're like honestly, I couldn't care less if they're
Yeah.
scissoring. Like I honestly couldn't care less.
Right. Yeah. You know, in Blades there are dark eldritch horrors to contend with. Who cares?
Just living in the ocean, just like swimming around.
Who cares who you're sleeping with? Like
Exactly.
Satara sure don't.
It's like I've only ever seen these issues in settlements that were fine. Like they had no issues, no worries. That's when they were like, let's start picking on people. Like you keep a dragon flying overhead, I think all those problems are solved.
Right. The moral of the story is don't make your campaign settings fine, folks. Always put some existential horror in there. Because if you have an existential horror in your game, no one will care who's sleeping with who.
The real lesson here is, does your town care that you're gay? Invite a dragon over.
Summon a demon.
Summon an eldritch horror from the deep.
Yeah. But Eric, isn't that what they're all afraid the gays are going to do?
Well, here's the deal. The ultimate campaign that I would like to run is just one where you get called in by a town who's fighting off all these monsters, and at the end you just find somebody who's gay and is like, listen, until I'm not the issue anymore, I'm gonna keep doing this.
Oh no, you spoiled the end boss for our new campaign.
Oh no.
Hey, Tez is in the chat. Hi, Tez.
Hey, Tez.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, we're talking talking queer representation in games. We have
Mm-hmm.
where we have been for the past almost half hour or so.
Yeah, we've been pretty on topic.
I think so.
Um,
More on topic than we usually are.
that's super true.
Yeah.
That's super true.
Um.
But yeah, so my major point, because I also wrote like a note before this, I was like, what was my major point? I think it was this.
Oh yeah.
Is the idea that, and I was talking about it a little bit earlier, that inclusion could be seen as political. Inclusion in video games, including people of color, people of different gender identities, people of different sexual orientations in video games isn't political, it's immersive because
Mm-hmm.
those people exist.
Right.
We do. All
Yeah.
throughout this universe and also found in any other like
Yeah.
animal kingdom or genre of science that you're looking for, you can find examples of these things. So, like, any universe that we can possibly conceive of probably contains these elements as well.
Right. Yeah.
Um, which is what's wonderful about homebrew. You can homebrew a wonderful world where those things don't exist and then reason that you're an asshole.
Right. Or and like and I haven't had the chance to, but I think because most of the people that I played with, you know, especially like first starting out, while straight white people, were also like relatively cool straight white people because
Right.
I don't fuck with bigots, like you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Um, but I could totally see using a tabletop space as a means of, you know, kind of not as teaching acceptance sounds like very preachy, but like that sort of like, oh okay, if you're
Subliminally teaching acceptance.
right, oh your character's uncomfortable about this, like let's unpack that. Maybe that's just the
Right.
therapist in me, but
But it's easily something. I think I read somewhere that if you're running a game, if you're the GM or the DM, you're like their mother, their therapist, their like all these different things.
Mhm.
And that's very much true. Like in a moment like that where somebody's like, "What?" You can be like, "Well, why?"
Yeah,
Well,
and
like, what
that's
about it makes your character uncomfortable or whatever, da da da.
yeah,
And be like, "Oh, I'm planning a plot hook for later on. Huh, tell me more."
yeah, and that's been kind of a thing that always I've always had in the back of my mind
Right.
GMing. Um, maybe just because it's an instinct that comes natural to me because of what I do.
Right. Right.
Um,
It's always there. I mean, same for me, but that's because I'm like a vehement social justice monster.
sure. I
Not even
mean,
like a social justice beholder. I just go
yeah,
I go ape crazy.
yeah, yeah. You pick an eye stock. You roll every day. All right, we gotta. What are we advancing? The LGBTQ or let's see. Let's go fuck with Alabama today. What are we doing?
Vaccinations. You're
Yeah,
next. Like
yeah.
I'm coming for all of you.
Right. Yeah, but like
Um,
as you should, and as like we all should
right.
be like
That's
uh,
exactly. That's the
not
big
into that behavior.
right.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. Like inclusion in games should just be, in my opinion, a non-issue.
Hmm.
It should just not even be any kind of question brought up. There's no reason to deny anybody without legitimate reason.
Right. There's
Like,
no
there's definitely some reasons to deny people, but not those reasons.
right. Sure. Well, like let's unpack that. Hello, this is therapist Steve. So like so
Therapist time.
so let's unpack that. So like this is an episode about it's an episode about conclusion. No, that was a couple
We
episodes
can do
ago
that.
when we
Yeah, I
were
was gonna
talking.
say that was a couple episodes.
That was when we were talking about how shit Game of Thrones was.
Yeah. Oh, R.I.P.
Let's talk about that. So like on the inclusion episode, um,
Yes.
on what grounds would you not include someone
Oh,
in a
I will
game?
happily answer that.
Yeah,
Things I
let's get into it.
it's like things I won't judge you for, the color of your skin, your religion, your sexual orientation, your gender identity, anything like that. Things I will judge you for and therefore not invite you into my table. If you are racist or anything like against any of those communities because of just what they are, definitely not invited. I mean, not that you'd want to sit at my table anyway, but
Right. Yeah.
I literally have a giant rainbow flag hanging in one corner. I'm like, no, that should scare most of them away.
It's like the pentagram.
I'm like, oh, run, flee! They're summoning gays.
They're summoning the gays.
Definitely, any of those issues, just a no-brainer. If you refuse to tip your waiter, it's going to be a rough sell. It's going to be a rough sell to sit at my table. If you don't use your blinker when driving, rough sell. Rough sell.
Yeah. Yikes.
It's a rough one.
Yeah. So you heard it here first, folks. In order to be included in Eric's game, you need to pick him up and drive him to dinner and then pay. And if you pass this test,
and tip the
waiter and use your blinker on the way home. Yeah. I mean, that's how I did it. That's why we're friends.
That's exactly. No, I mean, there's not. I mean, outside of like serious, like legitimate concern reasons, like criminal or you're trying to sell drugs outside my backyard, like I'm usually going to invite people in. It's not like an open door game or anything like that, but it's friends of friends of friends, and I don't turn people away as long as somebody vouches for you.
Right. That's the big thing.
It's not like the Last Supper. I'm not like feeding the people on the hills of games. It's like 4 people.
Right. Yeah. No, totally. Like that's kind of where I'm at too, where it's like as long as like someone that I know like vouches for you, even if I don't know you, like yeah, come on in. We'll run a game. We'll see how it goes.
Exactly.
And like if someone comes in and I run a game for them and they are problematic in some way, then like we talk about it. Like I'm not just gonna be like, get out of here. I'm just be like, hey, yes. I noticed that like these things were coming up during the game. Like let's is this like a thing like that we can fix, or like maybe you're just not a good fit, and
can we compromise
like,
on this?
Right. Well, like that. Right. That's the thing too, is that like sometimes there are people that are just like not a good fit for
absolutely
your table or your other group of friends and stuff. Yep. And that's not to say that like that's not to give people an excuse to be like, oh well, like this person's gay, they're not a good fit for my group. Like no, fuck off.
That kind of circles us back to why are they not a good fit for your group then? Like,
right.
What about them? Is it just that? Because then you're the problem.
Yeah. Well, like by not a good fit. So like the example that I'm thinking of is like you've got if we have like a group of people like our Blades game with like you and Tez and everyone, and we're like just all about goofing off.
Yes,
and like
I was gonna use that.
And like building our characters and developing our characters, and like we're like I think that of everyone, like I am the one most concerned with the mechanics of the game at the table.
Yeah.
And that's how I think it should be, honestly. Right. Like if we had a player or if I had a guest come on and like for a session and they were like super about like min-maxing and like rules lawyering and like doing all of that kind of stuff, that person, regardless of who they were, may not necessarily be a good fit for like our Blades game in particular.
Right.
That's not to say that they're not a good fit for if I do a Blades one shot full of like, because like that's like that person, like you could totally, I feel, be in one of those kind of like rules lawyery Blades games and like and like be like like those kind of that kind of stuff. Like there is space for people like that, but it might not necessarily be at the same space for everyone else in your game group.
Yes, and that's okay. Like there are definitely some traits that people have that do not connect with other people. And that's okay. Like I'm funny, and as I've said, as a player, I derail and I go and I'm kind of like convoluted and whatever. And I'm always trying to make people laugh and stuff like that. And
I think we all are. Yeah.
If you're trying to run a serious game, then like I'm not necessarily the best fit for everybody, and that's okay. That's a trait of me. Trait versus the party. It doesn't connect, and that's okay. Nobody's got to hurt feelings. I understand that the theme of the game isn't what I'm doing.
Right.
Um, but it's that kind of a trait that you can say, actually, you're not a great fit for this group, but I have another group that you might be a better fit
Yeah.
for, or whatever.
Yeah.
Not like segregate the gays out
No. Right.
or the whatever's out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but as we've been stating this whole time, like, acknowledge what you're doing and do some soul searching, dear. Do some soul searching.
Yeah. Or like try hey, I'm more than willing to have you back for another session. Like try it out again. Maybe try to focus less on your character stats and more about like goofing off and riffing and like all that kind of stuff. And there are people that are just not about that and like that's not the way that they like to play the game, and that's fine. That's what like D&D, my D&D Fight Club games are for, because it's literally just mechanical combat. Like you're more than welcome to come rules lawyer the shit out of me there.
Rules lawyer the hell.
Yeah.
Rules lawyer the hell. Exactly. We could do an entire episode on problematic players. I was writing that down.
Probably.
We could do like 4 episodes. We'll just devote each episode to different problematic styles.
Oof. Yeah. Yeah, we could. I haven't had a ton of experience with like all the different types of problematic players, just because like for the most part I've played with like my friends, and all my friends are pretty great. Like
I was thrown into 2 situations where I was like a brand new DM with a group of people I've never worked with. So like I've met, not that every player is problematic, but most players carry problematic traits.
Yes.
Which like I hope nobody gets super offended over that, because like as I've said, I'm a derailer. Like 100%. That's a problematic player trait. And I'll do it up and down.
Yeah, I've got my fair share too. Like I go out of my way and I will derail too in order to like solve like problems that aren't necessarily supposed to be solved.
That aren't
like,
or aren't even problems.
Yeah. and I can be an incredibly I do have a tendency, this is a thing. I have a tendency to like give advice, especially in combat.
Mm-hmm.
If you're playing a rogue and you're not positioning yourself right to like get sneak attacks and stuff like that, like
you pointed out,
I try real hard not to though, but like oh man, it's real hard for me sometimes.
Oh, yeah. That's like if I'm at a table like, with somebody. Oh, go ahead.
No, like just especially with like classes that I play. Like I play a lot of rogue, and I understand the whole concept of like positioning and all. Like like if you're going before the fighter, you go up to the person, you hold your attack until they move. That sort of stuff.
Right. Yeah. I'm very similar when people play wizards in a party that I'm in, and if I'm not playing the wizard, and it's like. My issue is that I truly believe that if the way that I build things is the proper way to do it, like the way that I make a character, that's the proper way a wizard should be. Like everything else is inferior, and like the way I've done it is correct.
Yeah.
So like when your build isn't the same as mine, I'm like, well, where did you go wrong? Like let me help you. And people are like, no, I'm making a different character than yours, and I'm like,
we need to play in a game someday, you and I as players, where you play a rogue and I'll play a wizard, and all we'll do is just infuriate each other.
To no end.
Yeah, like we'll be like very cordial, but then we'll be furiously like DMing each other, like
that'd be hysterical.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever actually played a rogue. I think that's the only class I've never actually played.
I don't think I've ever actually played a wizard.
Really?
I played a sorcerer once. I don't think I've played a warlock. I've built a warlock, but I've never actually like played one.
I love warlocks as villains because like they're obnoxiously powerful if you only need them for one encounter. Like they're great.
I love, so like one of the things that I've gotten an appreciation for warlocks for is when we do the D&D Fight Club streams. Warlocks get their spells back on a short rest, and the way that I set up those rules, you get a short rest in between rounds.
Ooh. Yeah, so
So
warlocks are broke.
warlocks are, I mean, they're not broken,
Not
but
broke,
they're
but
very good.
they do have a good edge.
As opposed to like sorcerers and wizards who, like, by the design of the game, I can wear them down.
Yeah.
And you have to be conservative clerics too.
Right. Oh yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah.
Segueing it right back in, I
Yeah.
will say that I was in a game with somebody who played a 3-5 game, who played a warlock to one of the Fae, one of the Great Fae. And as part of his like warlock whatever's, not that they have a mechanic where they have to pray or do anything like that. They just kind of have a patron. But as part of his role play was he would pray or whatnot to his patron.
Yeah.
And so each day he would roll a die to determine who he was attracted to that day. So he like jumped through the sexual orientation pantheon basically every single. It was fantastic.
That's really
so
good.
Like, but it would be like he played the a warlock bard. So he was the one who would like sleep with barmaids and all that. Right. So like every day he would roll a die to be like, am I still even attracted to this person?
That's dope. That's really good.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Moving it back into inclusion.
Yeah.
See how easy it is to include people?
No problem. Easy for us. Easy game.
It's funny to me because like one thing that I've heard is that for people who are cisgendered, white, heterosexual, whatever, they automatically think, oh, they're all just cisgendered white characters.
Right.
Like all of them are just like white people, and like that's it. And I'm like, I get that. It's really easy to fall into that, but like that's not realistic. And I'm gonna keep coming back to this because it's not the real world.
Right. Yeah. Hitler. Sorry. Newsflash, guys. Hitler lost.
There is none. There is none single. No single. We are a plethora of beautiful.
Right. Yeah. And if you have a problem with that, then like sucks to suck for you.
Like again, soul searching, dear.
Yeah.
Soul searching.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
No, it's fine. Do you have anything else? If not, I was going to transition us into our other topic.
Oh, I have one more thing, and that's that in my ongoing futuristic technomancy magic world, I'll be possibly introducing a reoccurring character. We still have to hammer out the details on them, but if I get my way, she is a lesbian. That's it. She's an artificer lesbian, and she's fantastic, and I really hope I get to play her. Sorry, now I'm just
it's all good.
Really excited about her.
Yeah.
So there you go. A little bit of inclusion. She's also the villain, so that's that's exciting. We don't have to just be good guys. You don't have to play nice.
Yeah.
Like I intend for her to die at the end, but that's okay.
Right. One of the GMs that I follow a lot of is Adam Coble, and someone pointed out to him during like one of his shows that in like literally every campaign that he's ever run, he's had at least like one main character NPC who's just like a chaotic neutral murder lesbian. like in literally every campaign. And so like whenever he's like in a new show, like when that NPC shows up, like you see Twitch chat be like, oh, Adam found it.
Oh, there it is.
There she is.
I would be like, oh my god, I can't believe that. But I know that person in real life, so I'm like, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like I know 3 of those actually, so no, I'm with him. I'm with him. They exist, and they exist in higher probability of encountering than the rest of us.
You know real life chaotic neutral murder lesbians.
I know real life chaotic neutral murder lesbian. One of them is a chaotic neutral murder bisexual.
Hell yeah.
So there you go.
I'm into it.
There you go. That's just part of her chaotic neutral. She's another one who like flips the coin.
True neutral, exactly. Rolls the dice at the beginning of the day. Yeah.
Good talk. I am all set. Closing thoughts on inclusion in games is do it, you nerds.
Yeah, absolutely. Do it. And if you are watching this and you are a queer nerd who is not being allowed to join into games because of one reason or another, then like hit us up. You have a place here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like, we'll play. We'll game with you.
We'll run a game for you. Absolutely.
Oh my god, we can start. Never mind. I was gonna say we could start an entire thing where we DM for people who don't have places. We could call it DM Daddies. And then I stopped myself because I was like, "What the hell is wrong with me?" But then I
Yeah,
said it
we can
anyway
we can
because
work on. Well, you know what? We'll work on the branding. We'll work on the marketing. But I am 1,000% down to do that.
DM Daddies. All right, we'll work on that. We'll table.
We'll
We'll
work.
workshop.
We'll work on the branding, or we won't, because it's good. It's got a ring to it.
It does. It's stuck in my noggin.
We could. I think we could pass as like a pair of DM dads.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'll grow out my facial hair, or I'll just wear a fake beard.
There you go. Do you want to answer some questions?
I would love to.
Yeah. So this is our new segment that doesn't have a name, where I go on the front page of the Dungeon Master Reddit because we don't have people to ask questions. And I go on the front page of the Dungeon Master Reddit and look for, people's questions, and then we answer them. Cause,
Which one are you on? Because I can go to the other one.
Wait. I'm on r/Dungeon Master.
Oh, okay, perfect. I'll go on r/D&D behind the screen. It's just another Dungeon Master one, I think.
I don't know much about the DM Reddit area. Actually, a lot of these are the same questions as last time, so
no new questions have been asked.
I'm just
gonna go to regular D&D. That's where people ask questions. I'll answer player questions too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I ain't scared. Yeah, it looks like nobody posts in our Dungeon Master anymore. What about Game Master?
Oh, there you go.
Is that a thing? No.
Should be.
It's not a thing. Huh. Hey Tez, you got any tabletop related questions for us? If you're still here.
Oh, I found a couple, but they're like mechanical questions. Is vampirism considered a curse?
I don't know.
I don't think it is. I'd have to look that up. That's a good question. I don't think it is actually, because I don't think remove curse removes it. I think vampirism requires its own thing to remove, so I'm gonna say no.
All right.
And then I'm gonna look it up and find out if I'm right.
I just Googled. I'm not on Reddit anymore.
That's fine.
I just Googled Dungeons and Dragons questions, and I found a new one. Can humans become mind flayers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually.
Well, have you seen the Baldur's Gate 3 trailer?
Yeah. Oh my god, yes. And let me tell you right now, I didn't know what was happening, and then when I knew what was happening, I was like, I'm slightly obsessed with mind flayers. I think they're fascinating.
I think all GMs have a phase in their careers.
Oh yeah.
Where they're like, yeah, let's go. Let's give it a go. Tez has a question for us.
I have an answer.
How do you deal with a stagnant problem that the party can't solve or seem to be getting bored with? I have an answer for this, but you can go first if you want.
No, go for it.
In the tried and true words of Dungeon Master YouTuber Matt Colville, orcs attack. If there's a problem that, or like a puzzle or something the party is like unsure of, and people are getting bored or frustrated or anything, throw something else at them.
Right.
Throw like orcs attack is like the generic one that he uses, but like throw any sort of like B plot thing in there, and that will get them to focus on something else. Especially if it's like a combat encounter that is like an immediately solvable thing.
Oh yeah.
Like something to hit and vent our frustrations at. Let's go. And usually by the time they have like done that thing, they will they will either be able to look at something with a fresh eye, or like come up with something else to do
Right.
to overcome or circumvent that problem. What about you?
Exactly. I was actually gonna agree. I didn't know that that was I didn't know that was specifically something. I need to watch his videos, I guess.
He's very good.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things. I just haven't had a
His
chance to watch any of his
he's
videos. But
yeah.
oh, sorry. Go ahead. What were you saying?
I was just gonna gush more about how Matt Koval is awesome, but go ahead.
But yeah, I actually agree with that 100%. You send something else for them to do. You take up more time so that they're not sitting there bored. But like in my opinion, the last thing I'd want to do is like give them a hint. And that sounds kind of silly, but it's like if I'm giving you a hint, I'm gonna point you right to what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I'd rather you figure it out on your own, send one encounter. I've definitely gotten into a situation where I set up like a puzzle room that made a lot more sense to me than it did to anybody else. And
Right.
that's not to say that I'm so much more intelligent than everyone at my table. It's actually to say that I probably built it completely wrong because I'm less intelligent than any of them.
People like I've definitely had people like overthink things that I've put in front of them before.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I have learned as a DM is when I'm building puzzles, as simple as possible from my point of view, because if I explain it in a way where I emphasize one word and somebody thinks I did, like that's their focus and it throws everything off. So it's like it has to be basic, simple,
Yeah.
handwritten, handed out. But yes, if they're stuck on something, I send in like an encounter, especially if it's just minions, but like plenty of them, where I know it's going to take at least 2 rounds or 3 rounds for them to finish it, because then on each person's turn, the other people are still focused on that puzzle most likely. Like they don't care about the encounter. They're like,
Yeah,
how are we
like
going to get past this?
yeah, some lowly goblins aren't necessarily a threat. Yeah.
No, no, not at all. Or
Um.
like depending on where you are, whatever's thematic, like drop
Yeah.
some spiders from the ceiling.
Yeah. Players never look up.
Ne-
If you're a player,
Never.
to always remember to look up when you're in a fucking
Look,
cave.
please look up.
Yeah.
Do you know how many? I mean, I'll do a throwback to AD&D Second Edition when what I don't even remember what they're called. They're like droppers or rockers or whatever. They're literally just stalagmites that fall from the ceiling and they'll kill you. They'll kill a party. They drop for like 3d10, and
That's
they're
so
like
much.
and it was a CR1. So it was like parties would just be walking through a cave to be like, you're dead.
Yes, get wrecked.
Sorry about it.
Yeah.
Look
To
up.
your follow up there, Tez, because Tez also asked. It comes to the question also: do you cheat and give them the answer, or do you forget the problem entirely and throw a new one out? So we've covered this in a past edition, a past episode. The way that I handle puzzles, challenges, rooms, that sort of stuff, and Eric and I differ a little bit on this. For me, I put a challenge in front of you, and whatever the party comes up with, as long as they make the rolls and pass the rolls, that's the solution. And this is a trick that comes from like Blades, right? Like if you look at like our campaign, like I put a problem in front of you. So like I put, you guys are going to this party and there's a line and there's a bouncer. However you guys navigated that situation, if you succeeded on your rolls, you would get into the party. If you it like, depending on how you do it, like it might lead to other problems. If you fought your way in, you might have had problems, but instead, like Eric's character like went up and looked important and went to go talk to them and like made his consort or sway roll or whatever it was, and that was enough for you guys to get in. Like that's how I present obstacles in all games, not just Blades.
Right.
And I think you like design puzzles though, like real
I
puzzles.
do. I do like full puzzles and puddles.
Yeah,
I do
full puddles.
full puddles. I do full puzzles and riddles. And for mine, it is kind of not more important, but it's for me, it's important that they figure out the puzzle or the riddle, because like that is the encounter basically. Like I judge experience, not that I do experience points, but I do story length, but I judge whether or not I've done enough encounters in between where I'm giving you your levels based on I'm assuming you're able to solve these things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in one of my campaigns that I ran for a good 2 years or something like that, maybe longer. Anyway, they were encountering a wizard who lives in a secluded tower, and you had to solve 3 puzzles to get into his tower. For something like that, I couldn't allow for any answer to solve it because there were specific answers that they needed to solve.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and one of them was like it was like a lighthouse. There wasn't like a bridge, but there was a moat. There wasn't a bridge that they had to cross, but there was a lighthouse there, and it was like a lighthouse. Like they could just pick it up and put it over, and it was. And then the second one was like a door that had like blood scratches all over it, and like a note that was like "Do not enter" or whatever, and like they had to figure out how to get through it, and it was just a door. They could just open it. There was nothing. It
Yeah.
was like stuff like that where I was just
Right.
like, like, but it was but it was like there were specific answers that they had to give. In those situations, I didn't because the lighthouse one, I surprisingly stumped them for slightly longer than I expected. But when they were like, "What's the hint?" and all I said was, "Well, the only thing that you find around the moat is a lighthouse." And then they were like, "Wait, like a lighthouse?" And I
Yeah.
was like, "Well, like a lighthouse, like it's like a tall, with a beacon." And they're like,
Yeah.
"But like a lighthouse?" And I'm like a lighthouse?" And they're like, "Could I just push it over?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yay."
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff. I was like, "Yeah, you could just
Nice.
yeah, just knock it over."
That's good. So yeah, so that's how we approach puzzles and challenges and making them like both clever and interesting, but also solvable.
But also exactly.
That's the important thing. And like,
As I said, we've come to puzzles where like the party didn't figure it out, and like after they were like, "Eric, we seriously are done," I was like, I really don't. I guess it was me. There have been situations where I explained it, and they were like, "No, we would have never." And I was
yeah,
like, all right, you find a chest. It's got magic items. Leave me alone."
here, yeah, take this. Here, have this. Yeah.
The swirling colors of Eric God appear and just hand you magic items and go, "Get through the door."
And says sorry, and then poofs
My
into
bad.
oblivion.
Whoops.
Poofs into rainbows.
Yeah.
Um. Yeah. Let's see. I've got. Oh, this could be an interesting one. I'm perusing these. It's a lot of lore questions on this website, like very
I'm
specific
glad.
Forgotten Realms lore that I wouldn't
Oh,
even.
yeah.
I don't know that much because I just either homebrew or care about other worlds other than Forgotten Realms.
I
Um,
love Forgotten Realms. I might know some of those answers. I doubt it.
uh, but this is a simple one, but I think merits a bit of discussion. Uh,
No.
how do you simply and fairly choose one out of an odd number of characters to be targeted by an attack or effect? Which I think can be condensed and reworded a bit. How do you pick what party members to hit with like different abilities and stuff like that?
Gotcha.
How
Okay.
do
Do you want to go first, or do you want me to?
I went first last time. It's your turn.
Oh, that's super duper fair. Okay. Um, if it is
Which podcast host do you target with this question first?
right, right. So the question is, just so I can make sure I understand, how do you fairly decide who to target with attacks during encounters?
Yeah, or like
Okay.
if there's a like someone like
Like a random effect.
yeah, like or like a charm effect or a hold person or something.
Gotcha.
Like
Okay.
how do you play that
Yep.
usually?
So I break that down into 2 categories, which are one, are we already in an encounter? And then two, is it like just a random effect, like it could hit anybody? If it's a truly random effect where it could hit anybody, I number the people and roll a die based on that number. And if it's an odd number or there's an extra, like if there's 5 people and I'm trying to roll a d6, if I roll a 6, it hits everybody. No, it hits
Yeah.
nobody. Or I re-roll based
Yeah,
on whatever
I-
my needs are.
yeah, I do that too.
That comes up very infrequently, because more times than that, I base it on what's happening. So if it's an enemy attacking, Is the enemy smart or is the enemy dumb? Like, is it a goblin? If it's a goblin, they're going for a fighter. They don't know to go for spellcasters first. They know to go for whatever's the biggest and scariest.
Yeah.
So they're probably going to go for a fighter. As a matter of fact, when I play goblins, I usually keep them attacking the fighter, even if other people are out doing the damage,
Yeah.
because they still just see one big monster in front of them,
Right.
unless they have somebody like commanding them who's more intelligent.
Right.
So if it's a more intelligent enemy, I base it on who they would view as the threat. Mind flayers would know to immediately go for like ranged attackers because they have all sorts of ways to keep melee people at a distance or dominate them.
Right.
So they would take out anyone who's like a ranged attacker first.
Yeah. Especially like mind flayers, like a mind flayer will know to like charm the barbarian.
Yes. Oh, exactly. Like, the mind flayer would know who to hit with what abilities based on its strategy.
Yeah.
So you base it on stuff like that.
Yeah.
If I truly have like nothing else, it's whoever hit me last.
Sure.
Whoever hit that goblin last, that's who he goes for.
Mm-hmm. So this is an interesting kind of like I agree, like that's how I do it too. Rarely will you ever see me in Dungeons and Dragons running an encounter optimally, like from a like player. Like as a dungeon master, like I will not play most of the time to like the best of my abilities, unless I'm playing like a dragon or like like an intelligent like boss or something like that.
Yeah.
Or when we play D&D Fight Club, I like part of the caveat, part of that rule set is regardless of like the intelligence scores of the monster and stuff, like I'm playing for keeps and I assume that you guys are too.
Exactly.
But so like we had this come up on Thursday when we were playing Dragon Heist. We had an encounter that a little bit of inside baseball, but I think was a little bit too hard for the players. So there were 4 third level characters, and I put them up against a regular bandit, a regular priest, and a bandit captain. So it was a CR1 half bandit and 2 CR2 priest and a bandit captain.
Right.
And they ended up, well, like we kind of ended with them. The sorcerer sleeped the bandit, so they only had the priest and the captain to deal with. But the priest and the captain could have easily wiped them. Like if I were playing like for reals, I could have easily like TPK'd them.
Yeah.
But I instead played in such a way. So like I had the priest kind of like go after the sorcerer, and they were having their like wizard duel, and the priest was like, you know, casting like spiritual weapon and sacred flame and
right.
that sort of stuff. And then they actually, I think they would have lost. I definitely think they like the reason they got out of it, couple of reasons. One, the sorcerer crit a chaos bolt at the priest, which literally like brought her down from like 30 something to 4 HP.
Yeah.
like critting a crit chaos bolt is no joke.
Yeah, no.
And then the rogue crit a sneak attack on the bandit captain, which like
that helps.
The bandit captain had like 65 HP, like that's like its amount. And I think that I should have like just like made it 40 or something like that before the encounter.
Right.
But I wanted to play it straight, like we were streaming and all that. But we got to a point with the bandit captain, because he gets 2 attacks around. Where like he was kind of just like, I was like yo-yoing all the characters. But I got to a point where I just started making him mostly attack the cleric, because the cleric had the most AC out of everyone. It was a cleric, a wizard, a sorcerer, and a rogue. Like it's not exactly the optimal party comp, but like whatever.
Right. But yeah.
And but like they played it pretty well for the most part. Like the cleric was tanking, the sorcerer and the wizard ended up in melee range because he was like running up to them and knocking them down, and the cleric was like bringing them up with a bonus action and attacking, like that sort of thing. And the rogue was a swashbuckler, so he was able to like pop in, stab, and then fancy footwork away. So like they were like playing it well, but just like the amount of damage that I could dish out when there's like they're just 3 third level relatively squishy characters. Like if I were playing it optimally, I could have very easily killed them all.
Yeah.
But I played it in that like this bandit captain's like a duelist, and the first person that he engaged was the cleric. So it's like he was like we must like fight because we're that was my excuse, at least for at least having his like main swing hitting the cleric, and then I was having like the offhand dagger attacks would go towards the sorcerer or whoever else was in melee, and they ended up getting through it. The session ended on a bit of a cliffhanger because they killed the bandit captain, but the regular ass bandit woke up. So like now they have a regular ass bandit to deal with, which isn't a big deal, but like they're all at like single digit HP. So
Right, and he is full health.
yeah, he's waking up to find out that all of his friends were killed. So like we'll see how that goes, but
yeah,
that's kind of how I think about targeting players and playing encounters, because I don't like if I had TPK'd them there, like it would have been like kind of a bummer, and that's not how I like to play D&D.
Right.
And that's not how we all do. But so like for me, my decision making turn by turn in combat, again, unless we're like specifically establishing that we're playing for keeps in like Fight Club or whatever, is usually how do I make encounters that the players think are like very harrowing and intense, where when I personally know that like I'm probably not going to kill them.
Right. Exactly. It's a tough middle ground to walk, because you don't want your players to feel like they're just like kind of walking all over all of your encounters, because unless they want to feel that way, then all right, play your game. But you want them to have a little bit of a challenge going in. Yeah. So yeah, but the goal shouldn't be to TPK your party.
Yeah, and I was pretty happy with how that encounter turned out. I mean, we're still seeing how that turns out next week.
Right.
But I was pretty happy with how that combat turned out. Like everyone, like a couple of people went down and they got people back up. They played it relatively well given the circumstances, and like they had a tough time, but they won. And that's all I can ask for.
Exactly. And they feel good. That's what matters. They had a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of, I mean, yeah. So basically, end of your answer is based on the actions that are happening. That's how we decide who gets hit with what effects.
Yeah.
And worst case scenario, just count the number of people there, roll the die.
Yeah. All right. Tez just posted another question. I'll do this question and we'll call it after that, because it's been like a little over an hour. But but we have to answer Tez's question because she's the coolest. So
the coolest.
Let's see. Another question. What happens if a player is rolling so terribly, like I was last night? Sorry to hear that, bud. And can't seem to be useful to the rest of the party. Do you take into consideration the skill of the player to help, or just let them deal with it? Do you change the way you DM based on RNG misfortune? Do you encourage the players to think in a different way? That's a lot.
That's a lot. My baseline answer is no, I don't change. I mean, I, as the dungeon master, also have days where I cannot roll for crap.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah. Usually I feel for you. Even as a player, from the player side, I've had those nights where I know what I'm doing. Eric understands everything that has to happen. But my die are like 1, 2, 1. All right.
Cool. Our sorcerer in the Waterdeep game, the one that crit with that chaos bolt, I think over the course of our entire campaign, which like we're going into the 4th chapter of Dragon Heist, so we've been playing for a while, he has like a sub 30% like ratio of hitting with chaos bolt. It's insane how much he misses with it, like, and it's just unfortunate. Like...
Exactly. And it's also like it's a good chance for it sounds silly, but like camaraderie.
Yeah.
In my game I've got a couple games running right now, but in one of them, we play once a month because it's a very low commitment game because
Mhm.
we're all very busy people. But in the games that we've had, one of the players hasn't killed anything, and while that doesn't matter, in most games, people can say like their character, if you've tried to kill something, everybody's got some kills under their belt.
Yeah.
Um, he just hasn't, and it's because every time he goes to attack, he usually rolls poorly, like it's a 2 or a 3 or a 4. But anytime he goes to like do something beneficial for the party, he usually rolls pretty fine, or he
Mhm.
doesn't even need to. So that's usually what he focuses on. But in our recent game, he got a kill finally, and it was like a bonding moment for the entire party because they were like, oh my
Yeah.
god, you finally killed something.
Hey, you got there.
Yeah, they were like, oh, welcome, welcome. All right. And one of the players is actually keeping track of who makes kills, and he's like, you're on the table. And like that's his character's thing, is that his
Yeah.
character pays attention during encounters and like catches who kills what.
That's good. That's fun. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't usually alter my DMing based on how your die rolls are going, unless like
Mhm.
unless somebody's failing die rolls are actively preventing the story from carrying forward. Um, but those situations are very far and few between because I tend to build
Y-
stories that don't rely on
Dice rolls.
die
Yeah.
rolls. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel a lot of the same way. I've got a lot of I've got advice, like I've got a lot of thoughts and advice about, like, from the player's seat, like what
Right.
happens when you're having a night like that.
Yeah.
And I think we've all been there as players where it's just like, well, I guess I can't hit anything worth shit
Yeah.
tonight,
All right, guys.
or I can't,
I
like,
guess I'm useless.
yeah. And I've definitely had nights where I do that, and I think about, instead of thinking about my, like, shitty RNG or my shitty luck, I just think of, like, what can I do to put to give the party more of an advantage,
Right.
or benefit. So, like, I did this. I was playing a monk in a campaign, and, like, I just, like, we had, like, an encounter where I didn't roll anything above a 3, but I was, like, positioning myself so that, like, all of the enemies, I was in such a way that all the enemies could attack me, and I was a drunken master monk, so I was, like, making a whole
Right.
big show and trying to, like, provoke those attacks, and then I was using patient defense, the monk ability, because that doesn't you don't need to roll for that.
Right. So you just do things
But
to funnel attacks or give advantages.
yeah, and so, like, as a bard, like, oh, like, I'm rolling really shitty. Here, let me inspire you, or let me.
Right.
I'm just gonna sit in the back and heal because I can do that, or let me cutting words stuff.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
do that kind of
Um.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
In my
Good.
I was gonna be like in my I talk about this game a lot. My long term Pathfinder game where I
Mhm.
played my wizard uh in earlier levels. I think it was around level 8 or 9. Um, I had been rolling really crap all night, and I was like, all right, so I'm done attacking things with my spells. Like, every time I could memorize spells, I just memorized ones that were beneficial to the party. Because I'm like, I'm done rolling. Like, I'm just gonna, as little rolling as possible for the rest
Right.
of the night, and it is what it is. I'm very superstitious about my dice, and I'm like, if my dice aren't rolling well, I'm gonna just stop rolling them and let them rest. I'm just like, figure out and roll as little as possible. And that's easy to do with a wizard because you've got
Mhm.
spells that you can cast like haste. I don't need to roll for shit.
Yeah.
Everyone's hasted. Move on with your life.
But if someone else is rolling really well, then you can haste them, and then they can roll even
Oh
better.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and they roll even better. It's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
The fun thing that happened there was the DM had a wizard character that we were up against,
Mhm.
and it was like one of the not big bad guys, but it was one of the, like mini bosses, I guess you
Yeah,
could say.
yeah, court wizard of the big bad evil guy.
And it dominate personed me, and the DM was like, "You have to roll for a save," and I was like, and of course I rolled a 1.
Yeah, like you do.
And so the DM at the time, who the DM, even he was like, I don't play spellcasters as well as you do. And I was like, well, thank you. And he
Yeah.
was like, so I would like you to play your character still, but now you just hate the party. And the entire party was like, oh, son of a, come on. So
Yeah.
like I was rolling like shit, and I was like, guys, I'm really really sorry. But the real fun side of it was then the party got to see how dangerous a level 9 wizard turned against them is, and it
Yep.
was like, oh, I'm gonna cut you guys off with some walls of fire.
Yeah. Yep, that was one of my favorite kind of like teaching moments. The first time that I did that we ran D&D Fight Club. I played with my players who like all have played with me before and have been GM'd by me. But like the caveat of Fight Club, as I said, is like I play for keeps and I expect you to too.
Yep.
And in I think the second encounter, it was two berserkers and two priests. And so like the one of the players playing a paladin was like because no one's ever played against me playing a spellcaster before. And
Right.
so like he was like, all right, I walk up and I hold my shield up steadily and I cast bless on the party. And I'm like, okay, everyone gets this cool benefit. All right, priest turn. He walks 5 feet up and dispels magics your bless, and everyone was like, oh shit.
It's like, all right, cool. He walks up and casts heat metal on your shield, which you're holding out for him.
Yeah. Yeah, nice armor, idiot. Yeah, but like that's the thing. Like you have to roll. I like that was a bit of a tangent.
Yeah, but what it comes back to is I don't alter my DMing based on the players' rolls, because rolling poorly, not only is inevitable, it's gonna happen,
Right.
and we all just kind of suffer through it together. And usually you laugh about it, even during
the
sometimes.
chaos plot of it. Yeah, one of my favorite one of my favorite things. And Tez, you've watched Dragon Heist before. My friend John, when he rolls really poorly, like he plays Badger Yeg, the gnome wizard, and like when he rolls poorly, his descriptions of why he rolls poorly are some of my favorite moments of our campaign.
I was gonna say, yes,
that's how I do it too. Like when you like, it's just to, like have a good attitude and like roll with it and be like, oh, like this is like this goofy thing happens or whatever. Like just roll with it. And even if you are rolling poorly, you can still create cool, good, memorable moments.
Yes. That's the big one. I think the 2 times that you get to really hear awesome descriptions of what happens is when you aren't rolling well and when you roll really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
my
make use of both.
My catchphrase, my friend John says my catchphrase as a GM in all of the time that I've been doing it is, what does it look like when your character does blank? I apparently say that more than anyone else that he's ever been GM'd by.
It's a good phrase.
Yeah. And with that,
yes,
I think that'll about do us for.
It's a about hole.
It's about a show. I think we did a show.
I think we have a show. I think this is a show.
I think we
have like topics for next week still.
Yeah.
I think we're good.
Yeah. We have your long master list.
And we do.
Yeah.
And now I have DM Daddies to add to it. DM Daddies.
Yeah, we'll have to write the theme song for
Oh my god, yes. I love it.
I'm about it. All right, so we'll be back next week, in 2 weeks. Next week, what do you want to do?
Let me get with you because I have vacation coming up as well. I'm not going to be around.
We'll be back. We'll be back. I'll tweet about it.
We'll tweet about it. He'll tweet about it.
I'll tweet about it. You don't have a tweeter.
I don't have a tweeter.
We gotta make you. You can just have the Discussions and Dragons tweeter when I make
I'll just create a tweeter.
Yeah. All right. Time for a witty sign off. You got one this time?
I do.
All right, hit me with it.
Include us or die. No, I'm just kidding. Isn't it like see you at a refill or something like that? We really have to come up with a
I don't know. Yeah,
I'll write it down.
I think this is the sign off is that we don't have a sign off.
Just every time. I like it.
Yeah.
But like each time we have to seem organically like we're gonna make one.
Yeah. So like we're definitely, it's in the workshop. It's been in the workshop for how long have we been doing this now? I think this is episode 6.
Yeah,
episode 7 or something. It's been in the workshop for 6 weeks. We've got a real fresh hot one coming for you next time.
It's going through blind studies right now, and then placebo studies.
Right.
And then
looks promising.
It'll be ready.
It looks promising though. Yeah. Anyways,
But until then, that's what you get.
this has been episode 6 of Discussions and Dragons, and we'll see you eventually. Bye, everybody.
Bye.